Yo. I took Scareclaw to a regional and ended up getting like 45th. It was my second regional ever, so I don't know. I wish I had done better. I still put a lot of thought into this deck, so I thought I'd show you what I was on, try and explain some of the choices, then I'll go over what changes I would make. Then I'll try and wrap it all up with describing how my second regional went. Maybe I'll throw in like a combo in there. Before I get started, I'm going to post my full side patterns in the description below, if you want to know what I planned for. So I was on 3 copies of Rykart, 3 Acro, 3 Astra, 2 Balone, and the 1 Starfrost, 2 Reichphobia. Even at 2 in a 43 card deck, I managed to open it all the time. Having this card as your only starter is really annoying, but there's not really a ton I can do about it. 2 copies of Arrival. This is another good card that can end up being absolutely terrible if you just don't open like a Scareclaw name, which happened a couple times. I was playing 1 copy of Scareclaw Decline. My thought process being on like turn 3, if my opponent had a shuffler and for whatever reason I didn't have access to another copy of the field spell, I could return the field spell from my field or grave to the hand to get some extension without needing to get it from the graveyard, or at least maybe force their shuffler by making it shuffle back the field spell that I was trying to add back. This card also does have a grave effect. If there's 3 or more defense position monsters on the field, you can banish this to add any Scareclaw card from your grave to your hand. So it's like, it kind of helps your grind game, because if they out like your 3 tryhards, the deck is kind of just done. So I wanted to maybe have a card that could keep me going, should that happen. I didn't side this card out every game, but it was close. I don't really think that it's worth playing. Then for the traps, I was on 1 copy of Sclash and 1 copy of Twinsaw. Sclash is an Omni-Negate that negates effects. It's the main trap I always go for turn 1 now, because this deck loses so hard to Talents. And if you have set up with Beatrice, then you can just send Twinsaw to your grave with Beatrice and then banish it, then your opponent can't activate linked monsters for that turn. The Adventure Engine, this is kinda questionable. I was playing Griffin Faithful and Draco back, and then I was on 2 Enchantress and 2 Wright. Despite these weird ratios, I opened adventure cards with no Scareclaw monsters more than once. Griffin Rider Pass, even with like supplementary hand traps, just is not going to be good enough. I just wanted to have a higher chance at seeing Scareclaws than not, and this is all accessible as long as I open Scareclaw plus a Bystial, so I assumed that it would be alright. Maybe it's correct to jump to like 45 cards and just to add the 3rd copies of each of these. I don't know. It feels like I could access cards like IP Masquerena a lot easier when I was on 3 Enchantress and 3 Wright, just because you get Water Enchantress as an extender, and that's pretty good sometimes. And just having more good cards to see and less bricks may be a good call. Good cards are good. For the hand traps, 9 motherfucking Bystials. Good cards are good. 3 Ash. This was okay. It's not complete trash. I know some people think it is, this format, and it can be. It was a few times, but ashing things like a Mole Cricket, Branded Fusion, a Guido, Runic Fountain, Gigantic, that shit is game-winning. And I know Ash is the bane of like every rogue deck's existence. And I wasn't really sure what I'd be playing against, so I thought it was a good choice. Looking back now, maybe a card like main deck Nibiru would be better here. It just feels like Nibiru and Ash are kinda in the same boat. It's just like, sometimes this is fucking garbage. Other times, it's probably going to win you the game. Then for the last 5 cards in the main deck, 3 Dark Ruler and 2 copies of Cosmic. For Dark Ruler, I found that I consistently wouldn't have enough to pitch for Droplet, but I wanted both a card with effect negation to deal with floodgates and a card to blank an entire field so I could just clear it and set up too much to handle. I really want to always win game 1 with this deck, regardless of if I win the die roll, and Dark Ruler was great at enabling that. I decided to play Cosmic in the main deck because of Suliek and Crime, but also decks like Exosister, Flu, Spright, Despia. Pretty much every good deck right now is playing a mix of monsters and back row, and Cosmic was honestly fucking fantastic every time I saw it. I hit Runic Fountain, Perlarino, Smashers. I think it was a good call. And that's it for the main deck. 43 cards. Maybe you should bump it up to 45, adding additional adventure cards. I would cut Decline for a 3rd copy of Balone, or maybe you could add even more names, like add Reinforcement of the Army. Just because there's some hands that you just don't see a Scareclaw, and it sucks, because it's like 1 Scareclaw is really all you need to make tryhard. For the extra deck, 2 copies of Lightheart. Never felt I needed the 3rd. Link Spider, Cherubini, I never summoned this, and this should 100% be replaced with Dark the Dark Charmer. IP, I summoned this like one time and it didn't do much. I still wouldn't cut it, I just think that cutting the Water Enchantresses may have been a mistake. Also, the Earth Charmer Immovable. This was solid. I summoned it multiple times. I grabbed a Fenrir with it, and that won me the game. It forces the Shufflers, so you could use Arrival. I would definitely consider it worth playing. Then Phoenix and Unicorn. 3 copies of Triheart. I think it's mandatory to play 3. There are a lot of games where I would summon 2 on turn 1, either because he was already outed that quickly, or I just wanted an additional piece of follow-up. I find that this deck more often than not gets to turn 3, and more often than not your Triheart is outed in some way, so having multiple pieces of follow-up like searching a Rykart and a second field spell gives you a good chance at just murdering your opponent versus having just the field spell. You also have the option to just make a second Triheart turn 1 and see if your opponent can deal with 2, which some decks really struggle to do. Then I was playing Appaloosa, Access Code, Underworld Goddess. I never summoned Appaloosa. I summoned Access Code once and I lost, and I summoned Goddess once to out an Avermax, and then linked Goddess into a Triheart for game. I wasn't playing Underworld Goddess before, because this deck can out cards like Crooked Cook just by doing piercing damage because of Balone, but it still provides a clean out to other tough to deal with cards like Avermax and the Arrival Cybers. Access Code was in here primarily as an out to skill drain, but you have cards like Cosmic and Dracoback to deal with that, so maybe it's unnecessary. Appaloosa I originally added because there are certain times where you'd have like an IP and 2 names, and then maybe Unicorn and like cards like Cerberus just aren't good enough, but your opponent has a ton of monster effects going off, so you would just make an Appaloosa. I don't know if this card is actually very necessary in this deck, so maybe for the future this is one of the cards that could be exchanged for something else, like Barone. And the last card in the extra deck is Beatrice. I summoned it once or twice. I didn't really open Bystials too often, or if I did I had access to Adventure anyway, so I didn't feel like this was worth summoning. I wouldn't cut this card or anything though, I think it's really good. I believe I won every game I summoned it, and I wouldn't consider it win more or anything. It just gives you 1 or 2 more solid interruptions, should you be able to make it. And if the Bystial you used to make it was Magnamhut, you don't even really lose your DD Crow effect the Bystial provides. For the side deck, I was pretty happy with it. Again, I have all my side patterns for the decks I thought I might see in the description if you want to check it out. I was on 2 copies of Ghost Ogre. This card was actually really good. I was playing it as basically a 4th and 5th copy of Ash for Gigantic Spright, also for cards like Fateful Adventure, Magnificent Map. It's not bad against decks like Exosister, Sword Soul, Runic. I didn't regret playing it at all. I played against Naturia, and he placed Gravekeeper's Trap and used it, pitching Exchange of the Spirit, and I hit him with an Ogre, and the look on his face. Oh, not pleased. 3 Droll. This was for Naturia, Flu, the Mirror, Dragons, Draco Slayer, and Dark World. The only time I saw this card was my draw for turn on like turn 6 against Naturia. Unfortunate. 3 Imperm. I decided to side this instead of main it because I didn't think it was all that effective compared to the cards I'm already maining, but I still wanted to have it somewhere because it is one of the best cards in the game. A lot of the side patterns are just me removing my traps like Sclash and Twinsaw for going first and adding this in as an additional blanket hand trap for basically every deck. I don't really feel like I'd have been better off replacing like 3 copies of Saronir with this in the main. It seemed perfectly fine as a side deck card just for going second. Then 2 Lightning Storm. I only sided this in once and I didn't see it. It was for back row decks. Decks like Flu, it's pretty good against Sword Soul. This could maybe be swapped for something else. Then finally I'm playing 3 DDG and 2 DBarrier. I didn't see these cards much at all, unfortunately. These cards are super unfair and auto-win going first, and there isn't a lot of counterplay. I'm wary of removing back row hate, but maybe replacing Lightning Storms for something like Trap Trick is the play to never lose going first. Even if I don't make Triheart, I've won games just setting DBarrier or just setting DDG. Like, Lingering Floodgates are really balanced. And that's the deck. So, in addition to what I mentioned earlier for changes I'd like to make, I think having a card for time is important. It's just awkward in this deck. I couldn't really think of a card to play. I tried playing Dogwood instead of Droll and using it as like an actual hand trap to dishearten people from continuing to combo. Didn't really work. Plus, there's just the risk of not opening Dogwood. I would want some confirmed, easy to access way to deal with time. Maybe the strat is to play like one copy of Skullmark Ladybug and just try and get to Beatrice. There are 9 Bystials. All you have to do is open a Bystial plus a Scareclaw. Perhaps. Other than that, I think the deck is built alright. For my second regional ever, I actually played the whole thing out this time. 7 rounds of a Shizu tier format. Round 1, I played against Despia with a heavy Bystial package. I won, but it was a really close game. I think that deck is one of the hardest matchups for this one because of cards like Super Poly, Druiswurm, and Branded Beast. I think the only reason I ended up winning was because he just seemed unfamiliar with the cards, which is bound to happen. Round 2, I played against the only Ishizu tier player I played the whole day. He got 2-0'd. Round 3, I played against Vernisylph Naturia Ishizu. This ended up being a draw, which honestly annoyed the fuck out of me. This guy played really slow. Like, no offense to the dude, but he had 2 level 4s on his field and no other plays, and it took him probably like 3 full minutes to overlay 2 level 4s into DBarrier and draw 2, and of course he discarded fucking Sacred Tree, so that was a draw. Getting anything but a win at that point just feels terrible because I know it's going to push me down to the tables where people are playing like weird shit, so round 4, I played against Draco Slayers, and I'll be honest, I haven't really read those cards. I know they're broken, I've lost to the deck before, and I know they can play through a ton of interruption. I definitely 100% used my interactions wrong, and this guy cooked the fuck out of me, deservedly, and he ended up topping, so good for him. Round 5, I played against Adventure Spright, featuring Kashtira Unicorn. This was another loss. I wasn't really ready for Adventure Spright. I also opened complete dog shit, and he opened Right Angler, Swap Frog, Unicorn. My hand traps didn't make a dent in this build, so it was rough. Round 6, I played against Runic Spright, and I opened the best hands this deck can possibly open against this poor guy. We still ended up going to game 3 just because I opened too many going second cards and not enough engine in game 2. But man, this guy got fucked and had a demeanor like this had been happening all day. I'm talking Dark Ruler, Cosmic, the Fountain, Brave Token, full board wipe with Tryhard with the traps and follow-up in hand. Absolutely beautiful. And my round 7 match is what else but the fucking mirror match. And I lost! That just stings. It was entirely luck. I'm not coping. This guy activated Imperm, then Chainlink 2 Twinsaw, making the Imperm miss, which let me win game 2. I should have gotten 2-0'd. My hands were so bad. Game 3, my hand was Arrival, Twinsaw, Enchantress, Druiswurm, and Dark Ruler. A hand so bad it makes me look at cards like Arrival in a new light. A light revealing them to be as bricky as fucking Scrap Golem. So my final record was 3-3-1. I should have just played tier. So here's a bunch of cards that I would consider playing in the deck instead after playing a ton of locals with this deck for like over the course of a month and then entering a regional, playing an additional 7 rounds with this deck. So I don't know. Maybe you bring in like Barone and Dark and you take out Cherbini for sure, and probably Access Code or Appaloosa, one of those two. And you can add in these. You could add in Zeus to this. Nibiru could replace Ash. This could just be an additional starter. These are just additional good cards you can play. This would help you get to IP. This is your card for time. I'll just quickly show the lines to get to Beatrice. I'll just put a Scareclaw in my hand plus a Bystial to show you that that's all you need. So we'll go Acro. I'll just put these to the side. Acro, Saronir. So you would normal summon this out, summon Lightheart, get the field spell, add this, go pop. You can reborn this, get a second field spell if you want, summoning a second copy of Lightheart, using that copy of Lightheart. So you even get to follow up, and then you banish this, and then that is Beatrice. And then you can send your Skullmark Ladybug and get some burn damage, or you can just send your Water Enchantress or your copy of Twinsaw. So you can go like so. You can even send Decline if you want to go that route. You can send any of these, and it would be probably pretty good. Anyway, that's it for the video. Thanks for watching.